Hey guys, what's up? On this video, I'm gonna rank the maps on Predator hunting grounds. I'm gonna be ranking them both by my personal preference and how good they are for the Predator. I'm gonna only doing how good they are for the Predator because I think that for the fighting, it's kind of like pretty much the opposite way. Like the what is the worst for the Predator is gonna be usually the best for the fighting. But there's also like some variables here and there that don't really make much difference for the fighting. And a big factor are also the missions, the kind of objectives that you're gonna be doing. But first, by my personal preference, still, I'm gonna be starting at the bottom, like the worst map for me. I mean, just for looks, is probably Backwater, which might come to a surprise to a lot of people. It's one of the 3 original maps on this game, but I just never liked it. The water area always bothered me because it's hard for the Predator to just move there because your cloak is gonna be screwed over by the water, and I just don't like the coloring. I was never a big fan of this map, and it's too big for me. I feel like in regards to like finding the fighting, finding like raid locations has like too many raid locations, too many medikits, it's just like too far away from each other. It's harder for me to predict the mission, do some stuff in this map, and I just don't like the looks of it. I mean, mainly for looks. I mentioned the other variables in regards to like gameplay wise, but I just never like the looks of it. Second worst map for me, it's gonna be Airstrip. And this counts for both day and night. I like both versions of each one of the maps, at least from how they look like. I think that both look okay. I don't have like a preference over night and day. For a while I was really liking the night map, just the visuals, but over time I started to get bored of it. Mainly because of how ineffective it was for them to make it scary for the fighting, because of how easy it is to see the cloak of the Predator in night maps. But yeah, second worst map for me is just Airstrip. I just kind of, not only the size, I feel like for this game, sometimes it just like it just kind of feels like annoying to cross over, but I just kind of feel like too yellow for me. I don't know. I think it looks good. I like some parts of it, but there are just some other parts of the map that I don't like. Next, it's gonna be where is the headquarters. Headquarters is like the biggest map, and the size does bother me. And sometimes like to cross it over. Sometimes I feel like it forces me to use like a class like Scout. I need to be fast to be able to cross this map over. But it looks so cool. It has like so much different locations, different camps. You have like the headquarters, which I know is a death trap to the Predator. It's just terrible. Gameplay wise, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. But I think it looks cool. The headquarters location, the waterfall, it reminds me like a AVP classic. The Ewok houses looks different, like some of the bases. I think it's a very creative map. It's just like gameplay wise in practice, it's just terrible, and also the FPS it runs terrible. But mainly for how it looks like, I think it looks pretty cool. Other one, Excavation. I always just like it how it looked like. I like the caves, I like the whole idea of it, even though in practice also doesn't work very well. I finally kind of screwed over that one, but I just like how effective it is. Like the camps, it's a very simple map. It just has caves. It's pretty much like Overgrowth with caves, which is Overgrowth is also a map that I like a lot. But I just think it's okay. I just like the way it looks like, you know. Other ones, I think we're only missing Derail and Overgrowth, which I like pretty much the same. They're just like the very OG maps. I like the way they look. I like the idea that they did with this ones. Overgrowth is just more of a classic jungle, and Derail has like this like worker construction area, the rooftops. They're just my favorite maps. Overgrowth and Derail has always been my favorite maps. That's not gonna change. I like the way that they look, the coloring, jungles, the trees, the environment. Just very good overall. Both in day, I mean also for night maps also, they are the ones that I like the most. I just like the way they feel, you know. And in regards now, I'm gonna be ranking them in regards to how good they are for the Predator. Worst one has to be headquarters at night. All the maps at night, to be honest, are bad for the Predator, probably worse. I don't know which gonna be like. It's gonna be hard to like do a good comparison between like, let's say, Overgrow at night and like Airstrip at day. It's kind of complicated to deal with like that because it depends. I feel like it's too hard to evaluate, but I would say that I will rank pretty much like all the maps at night at worst. Like in this ranking that I'm gonna be doing at maps, I'm not gonna be separating between night and day, but you can count like first, like I would say like this, the order that I'm talking about, the maps in night tend to be worse for the Predators. Night maps are always worse for the Predator. But some maps, like they are, even at night, they are not as bad as some of the maps like at day. Like let's say headquarters at day and Overgrowth at night. Overgrowth is a much better map for the Predator overall, but at night is still very shit. But headquarters is shit even at day, even in any occasion, you know, especially for the mission, which is not a big variable. Yeah, also a big factor in regards to how good a map is gonna be or not for the Predator is has a lot to do with the missions on it. Like Headquarters is bad overall just because of it has a lot of locations which are terrible for the Predator. Is like the size. Usually bigger maps have a disadvantage for the Predator because it takes longer for the Predator to reach the fighting, start attacking the fighting, predict where the mission is gonna be. There are like more different locations where the fighting can go to do the mission, and just crossing the map when they has like to go to the raid locations. There are many problems with like why bigger maps tend to have put the Predator in a disadvantage, but Headquarters has that, and it has many locations which are just terrible for the Predator to do anything. Like the Headquarters, which has the name, it's just a death trap. When the fighting is like inside doing a mission, if it's a mission in Headquarters, there's not much the Predator can do. The Predator just has to wait until the fighting leaves. He can try like to use the disc, but the fighting can easily counter that just by hiding certain locations inside. It's gonna be very hard for the Predator. The Ewok houses are also very bad for the Predator to find a good positioning and angle to shoot the fighting, damage the fighting. Most of the locations are pretty bad. Like the beach house that you can see, probably the best camp for the Predator to fight the fighting. But if the fighting is going to that location, if they start the mission there, it's probably gonna be the shortest mission in the game, which is the safe mission. So the missions the missions that put the fighting in good places so the Predator to attack them tend to be the shortest missions in the game. So it kind of puts the Predator in a disadvantage there. Not only in, it's not just about the mission and where it puts the Predator to have to fight the fighting, but also the amount of time that it's gonna take, the amount of objectives. The only good thing about this map is that it has some very long, annoying missions for the fighting, like really bad ones. But even then, even though they are very annoying, the fighting is gonna take a while to call the chopper. It's just like it's gonna be hard for you to fight the fighting the entire time, just because of like the positionings, the rocks, it's just like everything in this map works against the Predator. Not only the closer locations, but the big rocks, there's like a lot of different like big mountains. It's hard for the Predator to move. The Predator can get stuck in very easy locations. The palm trees, they can block the Predator plasma for some reason. It's just like it's very hard for the Predator to move here sometimes. The fighting can, even though the fighting might have trouble moving in certain locations, usually they can use it to their advantage. It is gonna be overall just be hard for the Predator to move around. It's just like overall just a bad experience from my experience playing this map, especially Headquarters at night. It's just like so dark, it's hard to see anything. It was just like usually a terrible experience. And the fighting tend to have more ammo crates on this map. There is only one default ammo crates, but the chances of other ammo crates being the map in usually the same locations are higher than in other maps. So overall bad. The fighting can always like recover from like find medikits and ammo crates in this map. Tends to be very easy for the fighting to be able to do that. So they can always recover. I know that there's a lot of pigs in this map, like Airstrip and Headquarters. Not only they have a lot of resources for the fighting, but also they brought a lot of resources for the Predator, which is just the pigs. But it's just not comparable because the fighting, if it's gonna be like the fighting is just gonna be like a match which is just gonna be like going by timeout, yeah, the Predator has advantage. But the fighting doesn't really have to like survive for much longer if they can just speedrun the mission. The amount of ammo crates in Headquarters and Airstrip just give the fighting the amount of resources for them to just survive enough time just until they do the mission. The amount of piggies on these maps, they can help the Predator, but not by that much. Yeah, the Predator can heal fast by just eating pigs in different locations, and sometimes the fighting cannot prevent the Predator from eating the piggies because of how much they spawn in these maps and how much they can be far from each other. But it just doesn't really matter if you can always heal by eating piggies if you cannot like win against the fighting. If every single encounter you're just putting a disadvantage, you cannot like damage the fighting, you don't have good positions to attack, the fighting can just like cock block anything that you're doing anyway. So yeah, Headquarters is the worst one. Other one is gonna be it's a close one between Excavation and Airstrip. Excavation because if it's a cave mission, yeah, and the cave missions are short missions, like if it's like the safe mission at the caves, yeah, you're fucked. Not much you can do unless maybe using the disc. And that is if you have a good ping. If you don't have a good ping, there's nothing you can do, to be honest. You can try to go to the like edges of the cave and try to use the plasma caster, but even then it's gonna be terrible. And Airstrip, there are some bad missions for the fighting on Airstrip, but the problem with Airstrip is also the size, big map, and it has a lot of ammo crates, and it has this big middle area with the rooftops, with that there are not any trees on it, like very close to it. You can try, there are trees like around the rooftops, but they are kind of far from it. Like there's this big open area which the Predator cannot use trees. And this big open area is very easy for the fighting to control, just like stay in the rooftops camping with snipers and like hold the Predator down or others are doing the mission. It's just overall like has like bad locations for against the Predator, like mainly this big middle area with the rooftops. And it has an insane amount of ammo crates. Default ammo crates, like in not only like the amount of default ammo crates is already pretty high, but then the chances of getting like handle ammo crates even higher. Like there's sometimes like I've went to like to South Camp in this map and I found like 3 ammo crates there. It's just insane. The fighting survivability in this map is just insanely high because of how easy it is for them to always recover. They can always recover. They can always find more ammo, more medikits. It's just very easy for the fighting to survive in this map. And the missions overall, there are some short missions, there are some long missions, like it just varies a lot. I think that in regards to the mission is like some missions are bad for Pred, some missions are good for Pred. It just varies overall. Excavation is just all about whatever you're gonna be getting a mission at the caves or not. I think that I would still put like Airstrip like above it. I mean under it. Like second worst map for the Predator is gonna be Airstrip. Worst one, Headquarters and Airstrip, just because of the amount of ammo crates. Just because of that. I mean, when I play like fighting alone, I always feel like I have a better chance of like in Airstrip than in Excavation, because even like Excavation, like if you're not playing a pre-made, it might not make much difference between one and the other. But if you're playing like alone against a good Predator, Excavation, even at the caves, which gives you advantage, like you won't be able to 1v1 the Predator for long. Even if you manage to push him back, you're gonna run out of resources. Well, with Airstrip, you can always recover your resources. You can survive for much longer in that map. So, third worst map for the Predator, Excavation, just mainly because of how easy the fighting can exploit like the cave location to just like prevent the Predator from doing pretty much like anything. After that, it's gonna be Backwater. Backwater is overall like okay map. I never like it as much to play on this map. I don't like the design of it, like I mentioned before. But I just feel like the main problem with Backwater comes to two things: the size and the amount of medikits. The resources on the map are a big component. I'm here looking. Excavation doesn't have that many like resources, but it does. Usually, I tend to always find ammo crates in this map. Excavation has like usually a good amount of ammo crates. It has like one default medikit for sure, but usually in other maps there are certain like camps which always spawn like 1 or 2 medikits very close to each other. Resources on Excavation like average. In Backwater there's a lot of medikits. Ammo crates not so much, but there's a lot of medikits, and the fighting can, I mean, that's gonna be like the main reason why Overgrowth is gonna be the best map for the Predator, just because of that it has less resources. Both Backwater and Derail have a lot of resources in regards to medikits for the fighting. That's why like they're not in the top 1. But Backwater is just bigger. It has more also radio locations, which are harder to control. The Derail's biggest advantage is gonna be exactly the radio locations. There are only 5 in this map. It's the least amount of radio locations is on the map Derail. And because of that, it's just easy to check them to see where they are. And 3 of them are very close to each other. Derail is the map which is the easiest for the Predator to control the radio location to prevent the reinforcements. And I know that the rooftops can be a problem for the Predator, but it all comes down to who gets to the rooftops first. Sometimes if the fighting gets to the rooftops first, they can just camp there with snipers, and yeah, the Predator is fucked. But sometimes the Predator can like get there before. And if they are at the rooftops, just use the disc. That's really all you have to do. If you have bad ping, yeah, you're fucked over. But unfortunately, that's just how it goes. But the rooftop staying like inside buildings in the rooftops is like easily a way for the fighting to put the match in their advantage. Just stay in the rooftop camping or just stay inside the building. The Predator best option is use the disc. Just use the smart disc, try to get them, because they are open areas, the rooftops or like the big buildings in the middle area in this map, so that you can maneuver the disc well there. Or you can try to use plasma also, like try to get a good angle, but that's not always possible to disc, is overall the best option. But the rated is just like smaller than Backwater. Also has a lot of default medikits, but well, it is smaller and it has better radio spawn locations. Backwater, I just don't like it. It has like I think the absolute shortest mission in the game, which is gonna be the weapon struck, is on this map and Excavation. That mission is just overall terrible. At least that one in Excavation is not at the caves. You have a chance of like getting the fighting outside, but it's a very short mission, and the fighting can easily speedrun it. It's very easy to just speedrun the objectives in that one. So I would say like the third best map overall is still Backwater, just because at least it doesn't have like ammo crates like Airstrip or headquarters default ammo crates, not as much. And it doesn't have like a very bad location like the caves. The water area is kind of bad, but it's a very open area, which is very also easy to use the disc. Backwater and Derail have bad locations for the Predator, like the rooftops and the water area, like the village. But it's a big open area, which tends to be easy to maneuver the disc, so there's that. While in Excavation, the caves, you can use the disc at the caves, is like your only good option. But it's harder to maneuver inside the caves than it is like in this big water area, you know? And that's like, I would say like in other camps, the middle camp is kind of hard for the Predator to engage. I feel like overall the camps in Derailed, they are easier for the Predator to find good positions and angles to attack the fighting, to engage overall, you know? And yeah, I think that's it. Second best map over Derailed overall, mainly because size, like good and fewer radio locations. And I don't know, I think it's just like how I think it's just like it's not that it's like that good for the Predator. There are many disadvantages too, like default medikits, rooftops if the fighting gets there. But like in comparison to the other ones, the other maps can be just so bad and unfair for the Predator that the Derailed just like looks okay. Best one overall is Overgrowth. I know that you have missions like that are like 3 minutes in like the North Camp. I know that and it sucks. The Predator is fucked in those, usually in those situations. But even then, just because of how close the map is, the amount of like trees, the way like the amount of resources. There is only one default medikit in this map, and you can easily destroy it, so it's harder for the fighting to survive in this map. I know that the missions can be short sometimes, but if you push the fighting hard, if you do a lot of damage to them, they're gonna run out of resources in this map much easier than the ones. If they don't bring a lot of medikits, if they are like in situations like that, you can even make them waste the medikits easier, because they have to use the ones that they bring. They cannot just use the ones in the map, because I mean, of course they can spawn there, they can find medikits and ammo crates in this map, but even then, like the fact that they don't have like the default ones that they always know that they can usually use, it does give you a little advantage. And overall the radio locations are good, not as good as in the Derailed, but usually they are the fact that the map is small, it allows the Predator to easily cross over the map, look for radio locations. The positions and angles that you can get, because like the rocks, the trees in this map, they tend to favor the Predator in a lot of occasions, especially for the kind of gameplay that I use, which is about using branches, which is about using the lens, which is about using plasma from the branches. The positions and angles that the trees allow me to use just give me advantage. There is a reason why in most private games you're always going to be seeing Predators playing Overgrowth. It's always like either Overgrowth or Derailed, but usually most of the time the Predator player, the host of the private game, is always gonna pick Overgrowth. Like, I always tend to play on Overgrowth. Of course, sometimes I mix it up, I try Derailed, but Overgrowth, I know from my experience playing private games against my friends, like against pre-made PC fightings, Overgrowth tends to be the one that gives me the most advantage, because, especially because of my gameplay, which is the effective way of plasma shooting from the trees, and because of how close the map is, because of the tree locations, the amount of trees that you have here that the fighting has to move over, it just tends to make my gameplay of using the plasma pistol or the plasma caster with the lens from the branches better. So it just tends to put me at a disadvantage. If you're gonna use the disc, it might not make that much difference between like Overgrowth and Derailed. Derailed has like more open areas, so maybe for disc usage, Derailed might be a little better. But still, like if the fighting knows how to counter the disc, if you might have to rely on plasma to, it just depends. It just depends on a few variables. But still, I just think that Overgrowth overall, despite the fact that it can have some really short missions, it just have like some good camps, like especially the left and the right camps, the west and the east camps are very good for the Predator to engage the fighting as they go there. Biggest problems are always the mission at the north camp. Like, that's the main problem with this map. If the mission is at the north camp, the fight, not only they are fast, but the fighting can usually like cover, well, they do the objective in the temple, and in the temple area, not much the Predator can do there. But I think that overall, from my experience, Overgrowth it tends to be the map which the Predator has the best advantage in most occasions. And well, this was it, guys. I hope you guys liked my video. See you next time.